Doctors and nurses, have any of your patients surprised you with their amount or lack of pain tolerance? I was a tech in the when the EMTs brought in an elderly woman with what they said was a sprained ankle. She had slipped while mopping a floor at work and her coworker had called it in. Turned out she had broken both of the bones in the lower part of her leg, but was sweetly chatting with us. I was impressed as soon as I saw this raise. EMTs had no idea and had splintered her ankle over where her bones were broken. Typically, broken bones in the legs, unless there's a huge amount of angulation/displacement, do not cause a ton of pain unless moved. We see that often in the old people with hip fractures as well. They're usually sitting there still and having no pain, but the second you try to move it, they're in excruciating pain. Same goes with trying to bear weight. Doctor. 50-year-old guy with a massive heart attack just lying there chillin'. Ask him his pain level. Deadpan. Just a little. 5-year-old boy with both forearm bones fractured and dislocated. Playing on iPad with other arm. 60-year-old lady slips, falls, destroys pelvic bone. Just wants one Tylenol and scooches out of bed wanting to walk home. After much convincing, she begrudgingly accepted that might not be a great idea. Fire/medic here. Farmers seem to be tough. One time a guy pulled into the front ramp, got out of his truck, and walked up holding his severed forearm in his other arm. Get him in the truck, take off. Along the way he states he lived down the road and wanted to get to us quickly. When asked why he didn't call 911, he replied, I just cut my arm, I ain't dying. Also had a battle of the bulge vet tell me he didn't need a blanket. It was -7 with wind chill. My grandma grew up on a farm in Alberta and was unbelievably tough. She once broke her finger by slamming it in a car door and splintered it herself with popsicle sticks and duct tape. Later her appendix burst, but we didn't find out until they took her to the hospital because she passed out at dinner in the retirement home. Said she hadn't wanted to bother anyone by making a fuss. Finally, she was diagnosed with stomach cancer. It spread through her entire digestive system. After she went into hospice, my mom was cleaning out grandma's apartment and found every single prescription bottle of painkillers mom had picked up at the pharmacy for her, unopened in a drawer. Knowing mom would eventually find them, my grandma had written a note saying she preferred to keep her mind clear. She was seriously badass. I had a patient with an open tibfib fracture, the bones in the lower leg sticking out, and below that it looks like jelly, trying to walk away apparently unaware of how bad his leg was. Of course he was incredibly drunk at the time. Working in a hospital has taught me the downside of abusing painkillers/drugs. Patients constantly come in here with long-term substance abuse issues, and now that they are actually hurt, MVC, broke bones, etc., you can give them enough drugs to put down a horse, and they still feel everything. That is one of my biggest fears. I had major back surgery when I was 14, so I pretty much live with constant pain. I will do everything I can to avoid taking a Vicodin, so that when I get older and I really start to hurt, I haven't built up a tolerance. The only thing that sucks about it is that pills expire before I use them all, and so when I really do need them, getting a new doctor to prescribe them is really hard. They always try to treat me like a junkie trying to score, and while it is understandable, it really pisses me off. Not but actually a cashier at a fast food place. A woman ordered 2 meals, and since she was a little older, really old actually, I offered to bring her food to the table, so she wouldn't have to wait. I get there, and her husband had wads of paper towels stuck all over his arms with electrical tape, and his right hand and part of his face were a mix of blood and second-degree burns. Turned out he was working on his lawnmower, and the engine blew up on him. They stopped for lunch on the way to the hospital for burns, and the metal they couldn't get out. He was acting like it was nothing. Working as an EMT, I got called to a 64-year-old female, slipped in her house, possible sprained ankle. When we got there, the woman is sitting in a chair with her leg stretched out in front of her, but she had long pants and slippers on that covered the entire ankle, so I couldn't really see it. When we walked in, she was talking and didn't really seem to be in any pain at all, so I figured this was going to be an easy trip. I kneeled down in front of her to take a closer look, and wasn't I surprised to find that it wasn't just broken, it was fucked right up. I mean, the foot was at a 90-degree angle to the outside, and it was also leaned down so what should have been the side of her foot was facing straight down, and the bone that should have been holding the ankle in place was pushing against the skin on the inside of her ankle so hard that it was about to rip through. I was bewildered at the fact that at that moment she said, "It doesn't hurt, so I hope it isn't broken." She hardly made a peep on the ride to the hospital. 35 miles, very bumpy. Come to find out she had multiple sclerosis and that makes people feel pain differently. Not a doctor, but my goddaughter was born very prematurely, requiring a major open heart surgery at 2 weeks old. We were told by her docs that, since she'd gone through so much surgical trauma the first few weeks of her life, as a neonate, her pain receptors/nerve endings would not develop normally. They gave us the example that, if she put her hand on a hot stove as a kid, she would have sustained a severe burn before feeling any pain whatsoever. She never cried as a kid when she got shot/fell down/banged into things, even when it was enough to draw blood. I suspect her medical history was the cause. 5-year-old child with a severed finger, half hanging off, cool as a cucumber, and not even upset. Mum was in hysterics. I have a similar story involving a 21-year-old female. Severed her index finger in a door, and I was the first responder. I controlled the bleeding until we could get her to a hospital, but she took it like a champ. I didn't hear a single peep out of her mouth. My dad has an unusually high pain tolerance. He was cleaning a fishing pole in our backyard once when he didn't notice that the pole had splintered and pulled his hand down on it. The force caused the pole to snap in half and drive itself all the way through his hand. He stood up, walked in the kitchen with pole hanging out of his hand and calmly asked my mom if he should just pull it out or go to the Since it was a fiberglass one, he opted for the just in case something was broken off inside his hand. The list goes on and gets worse. The other was when he fell off a ladder and shattered his leg. The bone came through the skin, and he was bitchy about going to the A doctor here. My intern year in residency, I saw a 17-year-old kid who, when while playing hockey, tried to stop a puck with a gloved hand. It struck his fingertip, injuring the base of his nail, causing a significant deformity. His nail bed needed repair, which requires first removing the nail. That is done by bluntly dissecting separating the nail from the tissue below it. If your stomach didn't turn reading that and imagining it, congratulations, you have no soul. Typically, we use a numbing agent to eliminate sensation to the entire finger using something called a digital block. I put it in. After 10 minutes, he still felt me touching his fingertip. I tried putting some around the nail. He still felt everything. His mother said his father actually had a similar thing. Lidocaine didn't work on him. I offered him a different numbing medicine. We can inject Benadryl in that case, or even knocking him out. He looked at me in the eyes and said, "Doc, just take it off." Without anything? Yeah, it's fine. They fix our cuts without numbing medicine. But it's gonna hurt a lot. I have to scrape. I know. So I went at it. He grabbed a towel with his other hand and I went to work. 45 minutes later, the nail was off. He was repaired, and I replaced the nail in its rightful place. The kid didn't even make a noise. EMT here. I once took a kid, about 18, 19, to the screaming all the way, for sunburn. Sunburn. I mean, yeah, sunburn isn't fun, but this kid was claiming 9/10ths pain and whimpering. I was astounded. Charge a nurse and I giggled about it for weeks. A friend told me an old boy came in with a large laceration on his arm. Suturing it up took over an hour, but can be quite fun as you can chat to the patients. My friend was engrossed talking to him about his experiences in the Second World War and really enjoyed treating him. The old chap was in good spirits throughout and told him lots of interesting stories about his time behind enemy lines or in trenches in Flanders. After he put the last stitch in, my friend started clearing up and found the local anesthetic bottle unopened. He realized he'd not put any local in at all, and yet the guy didn't once flinch, leave aside complain. When asked why he didn't say anything, he just said, "Oh, I thought that's how it's supposed to feel." I didn't mind. Lovely chatting to you. Then walked out. Don't make em how they used to. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe.